Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Daly. I spent 20 years with United Press International, most of it with the old UPI Radio Network. And my favorite assignment was going on the road producing and hosting American Montage. It was an hour-long weekly program. Now here's an edited version of one of those shows. Two of the most remembered cartoon artists and producers from the American cartoon theater were Joseph Hanna and William Barbera. Hanna-Barbera Productions over the years cranked out some of the most innovative and wonderful cartoons. Joseph Barbera decided to put on sale many of the original cells, those clear plastic sheets on which each segment of the cartoon is drawn. Put those on sale in a Hanna-Barbera collection. It was an opportunity for me not only to talk about those cells, but to talk about Joseph Barbera, William Hanna, and the art of cartoon making, and the importance of family entertainment. I started the interview by playing the theme of one of his best remembered shows. Well, there's a song we can all sing along with, the Flintstones, with the wonderful voices of Alan Reed Sr. and Jane Vanderpyle, B. Benaderet, and, of course, as Barney, whether you know it or not, the great Mel Blanc. When you're with the Flintstones, and one of the people most responsible for bringing the Flintstones to TV and movie screens is Joseph Barbera of Hanna-Barbera. Mr. Barbera joins us from the soundstage of his studios in Hollywood. Mr. Barbera, thank you for joining us on this edition of American Montage. Before we talk about the history of cartoons, there is one thing I want to get into, and that's a very important matter. The fact that a lot of artwork from cartoons is now being sold at auction, including a lot of what are called cells, which are the transparent drawings used for those cartoons. Some of the work of the Flintstones, for example, is coming up on sale. Why is there this resurgence in interest in cartoons as an art form?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, or the way I read it is that, and I get this because I do quite a lot of traveling and autographing these particular cells in various cities, but what has come to pass is that there are a lot of people, let me say young couples and middle-aged couples, and they have their children, and when they see our characters, it's kind of a nostalgic event that happens. They say, oh my, they say, I was raised with Fred, and I was raised with George Jetson. My favorite is Scooby-Doo. And we have one person that said, I love the Great Gazoo.
Ah, fresh air. It got a bit stuffy in there, you know. Now then, I suppose the usual amenities are in order. I am the Great Gazoo, and I thank you for rescuing me.
Hey, Fred, do you see what I see? I see it, but I don't believe it.
What they're getting is a kind of a warm feeling of nostalgia, plus the fact that they're suddenly beginning to realize that the animation art is an item that will enhance in value and increase in value because of this great interest that's developing.
Mr. Barbera, let's talk about the auction that's coming up at Christie's East.
At Christie's.
What kinds of articles are you going to have there? And could you again treat what you said before, and that's how sad it is, so much was just capriciously thrown away?
It sure was. I'm still looking for my original Tom and Jerry storyboards, because I did every one of them, 127 of them, and so far I've only been able to retrieve one Xerox copy. But for instance, what we're doing is we have a complete set of animation art from one of the Flintstone episodes called The Great Gazoo, and that's comprised of 54, if you can believe this, mounted storyboard drawings, original recording script, one specially created cell signed by Bill and I, and production notes, all in a crinkled pigskin case. Now, that's only one item. You get the whole storyboard. We also have a Yogi Bear set done exactly the same way, the whole storyboard with a color sample. Then we have individual cells. We have, for instance, one from the Jetsons Meet the Flintstones, which was a feature we did for television and was very popular. And we have some beautiful artwork coming from the Jetson feature that we did. And then, if I may give you one more item here, we have artwork from The Greatest Adventure stories from the Bible, which we did, which has been a huge success. So there's quite an interesting variety, believe me.
Mr. Barbera, could we go back to the beginning, and if you could, give us a little bit of a short course about how you and Mr. Hanna first got together and how the cartoon began to evolve from being just that thing that you saw between the features on Saturday to becoming very much a part of our lives.
Well, the way it started with Bill and I was brought out from New York, and Bill was out here, and MGM was starting a cartoon studio, and it was a real nightmare for 2 years, and as the studio was about to close, Bill and I decided to do a cartoon ourselves. So we picked a cat and a mouse. And, of course, we got about 400 barbs and arrows and slings saying that's the dumbest move anyone ever did. A cat and mouse? That's been done. Forget it. So we were told that you couldn't do more than 1 or 2 of them. So we went on to do 20 years of Tom and Jerry, and the series won 7 Oscars. The reason for its longevity and why it's continuing as of today is, I believe, is the stories and the material and the way we handle it.
I think, too, just as you would have in a motion picture, in order to have a familiar kind of set of characters exist for a long time, you have to like them. And I think that's part and parcel, that those characters are very endearing. They're impish, and I think there's a little bit of them in all of us.
Yeah, may I stay on that for a second?
Yes, sir.
When we would take a cartoon out, go to a theater over in Glendale or Santa Barbara and sneak it into a theater, and the audience didn't know it was coming, when the title came on and it said Tom and Jerry, the roar that would go up from the audience was one of the most heartwarming sounds I ever heard in my life, and they loved the characters.
Also, I'm not saying you were on the ground floor, but that kind of feedback you were getting from people must have been very rewarding, because that was during a time when people were not saturated with cartoons as we are today.
That's right. Well, of course, everybody missed them when they took them out of the theaters, because that was a nice break in the middle of, even today, believe me, put one of our Tom and Jerry cartoons in the middle of mayhem, cars blowing up, Uzi guns going off, giant explosions of whole cities, and it would be a welcome relief.
What is your gut feeling about the creative use of the computer versus the old, much slower but still more hands-on kind of drawing?
Well, I'm very positive about my feeling about computers. There's a place for computers, but it's not going to replace the hand art and the real animator who puts his heart and soul into a scene and an animation picture, because computers can take a spaceship or an object and move it around and do incredible things with it, but you can't get close to, like, say, a Bambi-type character who's just lost his mother, and you go in close and a tear comes in his eye and he sniffs and he's heartbroken. Computers can't handle that. They just can't do it yet. There's just a place where they can embellish a picture with some very, very bright, brilliant technique, but you got to have the heart and the warmth in it. And you can't have a feeling between Tom and Jerry where there's a love-hate relationship and do it with a computer. It just can't be done. It's got to be done with an artist.
Well, Mr. Barbera, you've certainly done a lot to enhance my childhood and millions of people around the world, and it's nice to know you're still going strong.
You stay with us, because we got some great new things coming up.
Okay.
And I appreciate your time and talking to you.
Well, let's get back to you sometime. Thank you very much.
God bless you. Take care.
And there you have it, another edited episode of one of the American Montage programs prepared for the UPI Radio Network back in the 1980s and 90s. I'm Dennis Daly. Thanks for listening. Thanks for going with me this week. And check YouTube for more American Montage programs.